After breaking the intense atmosphere with the dean's humorous remark, Master Lu responds to Yi Xian's question, stating that although the king has intentions of using him, there is no evil intent behind it. She emphasizes the importance of having the country in mind and explains that being a scholar of the country grants support from anywhere in the nation. Master Lu holds Yi Xian's hand, causing him to blush, as she encourages him to consider it for the sake of Jiang country, assuring him that it will bring him the country's support. Yi Xian, while feeling embarrassed, decides to accept the title of scholar, but not solely for the country's sake, rather for his own benefit. He contemplates how having an official background may make things easier for him and help him accomplish his goals. Seemingly amused by his reaction, Master Lu wears a cute smile as she concludes the deal, looking forward to his future performance. Concluding her visit, Master Lu bids her farewell, acknowledging that she shouldn't further interrupt Dean Ji's education of his beloved students. With a tone reflecting a sense of formality, the dean bids her farewell with a serious expression, expressing his gratitude and asking her to take care. Outside the mountain of the academy, Master Lu orders her maids to keep the news of Yi Xian becoming a country scholar a secret, emphasizing that he can't afford too much attention at the moment. The maids respond obediently, assuring her that they will maintain the confidentiality of the information. Now that he has become a scholar, Yi Xian asks Dean Li if there is anything else to worry about regarding the Kangmu Academy and the Tang Kingdom. With a nonchalant tone, the dean instructs him to forget about it for now. He invites the group to his place that night, mentioning that he has something important to explain to them. As the dean gazes at the sky, he reflects on the feeling that he seems to be forgetting something. Meanwhile, the father of the young girl expresses his gratitude to Mu Yun for safely escorting his daughter home. Appreciating Mu Yun's selflessness, he proposes a toast, suggesting that they continue their camaraderie and enjoy the moment. They decide not to return home that day, extending their time together. Meanwhile, in the boundless tower of hell inside the ring, a sinister face emerges from the smoke produced by a cauldron. The face remarks that the seal on the crumbling tower is finally loosening, hinting at an impending threat about to be released. Meanwhile, arriving at the dean's residence, Yi Xian comments on its remote location while he swats a mosquito in annoyance. However, his progress comes to an abrupt halt as a voice, emanating from behind the thick bushes, catches his attention. Speaking assertively, the voice expresses a desire to handle the contract with Kanglan Academy alone, excluding Yi Xian and the others. With his keen ears, Yi Xian recognizes the voice as Jianji's and becomes curious about the ongoing conversation. Intrigued, he decides to eavesdrop on their discussion, attempting to uncover the reasons behind Anji's statement. As Yi Xian discreetly listens, hidden in the shadows, the dean's voice resonates with a sense of wisdom and concern. He advises Anji not to burden herself with the Academy's old debts, acknowledging the heavy responsibility that Kanglan Academy carries. He expresses concern for her well-being and suggests that she doesn't need to take on everything herself. This revelation leads Yi Xian to realize that Anji is actually the dean's granddaughter. Without warning, Anji unleashes a swift chi-slash in the direction of his hiding spot. Reacting quickly, Yi Xian narrowly evades the attack, causing him to fall to the ground in panic. As Yi Xian tumbles to the ground with pain shooting through his body, Anji approaches the eavesdropper. Her eyes widen as she realizes it was none other than Yi Xian himself. Confronting him for his eavesdropping, Yi Xian swiftly rises from the ground, defending himself by questioning who else it could possibly be. He remarks that it's fortunate he was the one caught, as anyone else would accuse Anji of attempted murder. Realizing Yi Xian's arrival, Dean Ji expresses his anticipation for what he needs to reveal to them. With a noticeable annoyance, Anji recalls the previous incident where Yi Xian had peeked at her while she was bathing. She points out the audacity of his actions, from invading her privacy to now eavesdropping on her conversation. This revelation reaches Dean Ji's ear, causing him to spit out his drink in surprise. Yi Xian, realizing the gravity of the situation, feels his nerves tighten, his mind racing with thoughts of escape. Desperately attempting to divert attention, Yi Xian tries to lighten the atmosphere by commenting on the beauty of the day and the radiant sun in the middle of the night. Dean Ji, his anger boiling, flexes his muscles in a fit of rage, causing his clothes to tear. He unleashes a thunderous shout, berating Yi Xian for his audacious act of peeping at his granddaughter while she was bathing. With a frightened expression etched on his face, Yi Xian nervously denied the accusations, desperately pleading with the dean that it was all a misunderstanding. Undeterred by Yi Xian's denial, the dean's anger fueled his relentless pursuit, vehemently dismissing any notion of misunderstanding and commanding Yi Xian to accept his fate. As Yi Xian continued to flee, his voice strained with urgency as he repeatedly emphasized that he didn't see anything. Witnessing the chaotic scene unfold, Anji could only sigh in disappointment, face palming as she turned her back on the spectacle of Yi Xian being relentlessly chased by the dean. Meanwhile, Baizhe stood beneath the radiant moon, gracefully shouldering a long bag. Mesmerized by the brilliance of the stars and moon, he remarked that this night was not suitable for hunting demon beasts. Suddenly, the tranquility of Baizhe's moment was shattered as Yi Xian's desperate escape disrupted the serene atmosphere. Seeing Baizhe's bald figure obstructing his path, Yi Xian urgently shouted, pleading for Baizhe to move aside. Reacting swiftly, Baizhe anxiously implored Yi Xian to halt. Despite their frantic warnings to each other, their collision was unavoidable, resulting in a noise emanating from within Baizhe's bag. Yi Xian struggled to recover from the impact, while the dean swiftly ran towards him at an incredible speed. As the dean reached Yi Xian's range, he prepared to throw a punch and ordered Yi Xian to take it while calling him a bastard. Emerging from the bag is Mu Yun, who is brimming with anger as he demands to know who had imprisoned him there. Unfortunately for him, Mu Yun's emergence coincided precisely with the dean's unleashed punch, resulting in a direct blow to Mu Yun's face instead of Yi Xian's. Shifting the scene back to Kangmu Academy, one of the members from the previous group addressed the person named Chan Yen. The member mentioned hearing that Yi Xian, who had injured Zwili, was actually a skilled sword cultivator highly regarded by the national warrior. The member questioned whether they should proceed with their plan. Qin Yen, with a smile, stared at his sword and reassured them not to worry. He expressed confidence in his invincibility in the secluded realm due to possessing the Starlight Sword. Qin Yen claimed that Yi Xian would not succeed against him and mentioned that if he were to kill Yi Xian, the deputy dean would guarantee his promotion to a core disciple. Qin Yen acknowledged the potential repercussions of offending the national warrior but emphasized that he couldn't let this opportunity slip away. In response to Qin Yan's unwavering confidence, the group reacted with admiration, noting how thoroughly he had considered the situation. Deep in thought, Qin Yan contemplated the future, envisioning Yi Xian's downfall and considering him merely as a stepping stone on his path towards becoming a core disciple of Jin Bian. As the group gathered around the dean, with Mu Yun visibly upset by his swollen face, Yi Xian quickly came up with an excuse. He laughed nervously and informed the dean that he had overheard him and Anji discussing the Kangmu Academy agreement. In response, the dean, with his eyes closed, acknowledged Yi Xian's knowledge and suggested that he could make an early decision now that he was aware. The dean then proceeded to provide some historical context, explaining the fierce battle that took place between Kangmu Academy and Kanglin Academy in the past dynasties. He specifically highlighted the notorious failure of Kanglin Academy in that conflict. The consequences of the war were significant, as Kanglin Academy not only lost its legacy but also had the souls of its deceased disciples sealed within the tomb sword formation, a cruel form of humiliation. Upon hearing this, Yi Xian reflected on the sword formation he had witnessed at Kangmu Academy. Mu Yun, addressing the dean, inquired about what happened next in the story. Anji explained that every 3 years, Kanglin Academy holds a tournament with Kangmu Academy. The purpose of the tournament is to let the deceased disciples rest in peace. Anji added that if they win the tournament, the souls of the remaining disciples can be released. Yi Xian asked if Kanglin Academy has ever won these tournaments before. In response, Anji acknowledged that in the previous war, Kanglin Academy suffered a significant loss. Kangmu Academy seized all of their resources, and now only the Ji family remains in Kanglin. Upon hearing this, Mu Yun expressed surprise at this revelation and wondered if they were really going to confront Kangmu Academy in the upcoming tournament. Anji informed him that it wouldn't be necessary, as he alone would be enough for the battle. However, he wanted them to make their own choice and leave if they desired. However, Yi Xian, filled with conviction, stated that he held a long-standing grudge against Kangmu Academy and would not forget Dean Ji's kindness in saving Linger. He declared that he would not forget this kindness and leave. Bai Zhe declared that he would stay as well, asserting that there was nothing to fear from Kangmu Academy. Consequently, Mu Yun eagerly declared his intention to participate as well, stating that he was in. Dean Ji, taking note of their response, turns his attention to Anji and remarks that he has a keen eye for judging people. He reminds her that he had previously predicted their agreement. Turning her back towards the trio, Anji labels them as foolish individuals who lack the fear of death. Addressing the trio, Dean Ji sheds light on the cause of Anji's cold-heartedness, revealing the tragic loss of her parents at the hands of the Kangmu Academy. He emphasizes that her concerns for their safety are genuine, and she fears involving them in the perilous competition. Responding to this, Yi Xian expressed his understanding regarding Anji. Eagerly approaching the dean, Mu Yun raises his expectations and asks if there are any martial arts secrets that he can share, considering the imminent dangers of the upcoming competition. With a smile that carries a subtle touch of malevolence, Dean Ji assures them not to worry, as he will personally take charge of their training from that point onward. The next morning, deep within the mountains, a sharp whistle escaped Dean Ji's lips, echoing through the rugged terrain. In response, a hungry demon wolf emerged, fixing its fierce gaze upon the trio, revealing its hunger. Nervously, Mu Yun turned to Dean Ji, seeking clarification on the creature that he had summoned. Bai Zhe, in response, explained that it was a formidable Sky Realm-level demon wolf. With a sense of pride, Dean Ji plays with his mustache as he remarks on the impressiveness of the demon beast before them. However, he regretfully concluded that it was not suitable for their purposes. Turning his attention to Mu Yun, Dean Ji noted the young man's fondness for running. He explained that while the demon wolf surpassed Mu Yun in raw strength, it fell short in terms of speed. Thus, Dean Ji had enlisted the wolf's assistance to aid Mu Yun's training. Nervously, Mu Yun sought clarification from Dean Ji, unsure of his intentions. With eyes closed, Dean Ji leaned in, holding his chin, and spoke with what seemed to be genuine sincerity. He emphasized that it was all for Mu Yun's benefit, explaining that if he doesn't run, there will be fewer chopsticks on Kanglin Academy's dining tables. Before Mu Yun could respond, the demon wolf lunged forward, charging at full speed. Panic ensued, accompanied by frantic screams. As Mu Yun sprinted, chased relentlessly by the ferocious wolf, he couldn't help but mutter under his breath, referring to Dean Ji as a crazy old man. As Mu Yun's unfortunate situation caught the attention of the two watching students, they couldn't help but comment on his misfortune, feeling relieved that they were not in his shoes. Dean Ji then playfully tapped the nervous Bai Zhe, causing him to freeze in place. Looking at Bai Zhe, Dean Ji acknowledged his daily encounters with demonic beasts in the Mangan Mountains. With that in mind, he proceeded to put shackles on Bai Zhe's feet. Examining the shackles with concern, Bai Zhe asked about their purpose. Dean Ji replied that it was better not to ask. Following this, Dean Ji then suspended Bai Zhe upside down beneath the waterfall, explaining that if he swam against the current and went over the waterfall, his physical strength would surpass that of an average martial artist. Shifting his attention to Yi Xian, Dean Ji praised him, saying that the entire capital's foundation was built upon individuals like him. He assured Yi Xian that except for the national warrior, he was no less capable than anyone else. Nervously, Yi Xian humbly denied the compliment, expressing appreciation for the kind words, but considering himself to be an ordinary person. Inquiring about Yi Xian's best punching technique, Dean Ji turned his attention to him. Responding to the question, Yi Xian nervously replies that his best punching technique was the Fist of Avalanche, an earth-grade martial skill. Pointing towards a towering mountain, Dean Ji instructed Yi Xian to unleash his fist and strike it with all his might until the mountain shattered. Taken aback by the seemingly impossible task, Yi Xian questioned whether he was expected to break an entire mountain with his punches alone. After 3 grueling days of relentless punching, Yi Xian found himself exhausted and sitting beside the giant rock. He couldn't help but express his frustration, noting that not even a single corner had been chipped off. He pondered how Dean Ji came up with such an unconventional method of using his fist as a secondary technique to demolish a mountain. Examining his sore and weary fist, Yi Xian realized that despite reaching the golden body realm in terms of his physical strength, he still felt the pain in his flesh. Doubt started to creep into his mind, questioning the effectiveness of this approach for him. With a sudden realization, Yi Xian decided to seek guidance from his master. In the boundless Tower of Hell, he called out to his master, expressing his presence and his need for guidance. Yi Xian voiced his concern about the absence of his master, realizing that he hadn't received any response. Just as he expressed his frustration, the entire platform beneath him began to shake, leading him to believe that his master was the cause. Yi Xian couldn't help but feel annoyed, thinking that he shouldn't be teased in such a manner. Suddenly, a sound caught Yi Xian's attention from above. Intrigued, he looked up to determine its source. Upon examining the enormous circle above, Yi Xian realized that it was the entrance to the second level of the boundless Tower of Hell. With this revelation, he made the decision to ascend and explore further. After jumping up and regaining his balance, Yi Xian found himself surprised by the massive eye staring back at him from the partially closed entrance of the shackled structure. As Yi Xian and the eye locked gazes, he couldn't help but recall his master's warning about the individual residing on the second level not being good. He contemplated whether he would be capable of handling the entity if it were to emerge. Deep in thought, Yi Xian's attention was abruptly diverted as a mysterious red paper suddenly flew towards him. Filled with curiosity, he reached out and picked up the paper, eager to unravel its secrets. As Yi Xian held the paper in his hand, the true scale of the gate, as well as the unrelenting gaze of the eye, became strikingly apparent. Yi Xian held the paper in his hand, examining it closely and questioning its purpose. He wondered if it was meant for him, contemplating its significance. As Yi Xian studied the paper, his expression changed as he noticed a drawing of a crying face on it. Realization dawned upon him that the creature had sent the paper as a form of communication. In response to the paper's message, Yi Xian pointed at it while showing it to the creature, expressing his disbelief and asking if it was requesting to be released. In an intriguing turn of events, the eye of the creature sent another paper in Yi Xian's direction. Curiosity piqued, he picked up the paper and examined it, finding a drawing of a smiling face. Yi Xian interpreted this as an affirmation that the creature did indeed wish to be released. However, Yi Xian hesitated, recognizing the potential danger of releasing a powerful demon beast without knowing its true nature. He concluded that his current level of cultivation would not be sufficient to handle the consequences. Voicing his thoughts, Yi Xian explained that he couldn't release the creature due to the unknown risks involved. He emphasized that if he were to release it, and it caused significant trouble, he would be placing himself in great peril. Therefore, he made the decision not to release it for the time being. Despite his decision, Yi Xian reassured the creature, promising that when he became strong enough to handle it, he would fulfill its request for release. However, before he could even finish his words, the creature's eye immediately expelled him from the ring, causing Yi Xian to awaken in the physical world with a bewildered expression on his face. Yi Xian couldn't help but comment on the creature's rude behavior, noting its method of removing him from that place. He inwardly affirmed his decision not to release the creature, realizing it had been a wise choice. Rising from his position, Yi Xian determined that he needed to inform the elder about the situation and locate the 9 Dao principle. However, as he started to get up, the sudden snapping of a branch behind him caught his attention. He turned to find a trio standing there, with the person in the center asking if he was Yi Xian. Examining the trio closely, Yi Xian felt a sense of unease, recognizing them as individuals from the Kangmu Academy. He wondered why Old Man Ji had allowed them to come up there. Facing the leader, who happened to be Qin Yan, Yi Xian stood tall and questioned him directly if he wanted to fight. Qin Yan responded with a chuckle and readied his sword, declaring that it would be a one-on-one battle between them. Qin Yan, bracing himself for an attack, boldly declared his intention to test the extent of Yi Xian's power. As he charged towards Yi Xian, Qin Yan expressed his disbelief and questioned how Yi Xian could dare to challenge someone from the prestigious Kangmu Academy. Observing this, Yi Xian felt a bead of sweat forming on his forehead as he realized that his opponent was a formidable presence in the profound Qi realm. Despite his uncertainty about the outcome, Yi Xian gathered his resolve and prepared to strike back, using his bare fist as his weapon. The clash between his fist and Qin Yan's sword ensued. To Qin Yan's astonishment, the clash yielded an unexpected result. He found himself sweating in surprise as he commented on Yi Xian's audacity to fight against his sword with just his fist. Gazing at his opponent, Yi Xian acknowledged that the training method imparted by the dean had indeed proven effective. Addressing Qin Yi Xian warned him not to hold Yi Xian responsible if he was unable to secure victory in their battle. However, Yi Xian was completely taken by surprise when Qin Yi suddenly appeared behind him, pointing his sword at Yi Xian's back. This unexpected turn of events caused Yi Xian to kneel down, expressing his disapproval of his opponent's actions, and stating that they were behaving shamelessly. One of the group members responded mockingly, emphasizing that in competitions, the focus is always on the results rather than the process, and calling Yi Xian a fool. Qin Yi chuckled in response to their comments. Hearing this, Yi Xian questioned whether they were truly confident in their situation. In an unforeseen twist, the sword lodged in Yi Xian's back began emitting a radiant light. The light enveloped the sword, and its essence started merging with Yi Xian. Witnessing this extraordinary event, Qin Yi was taken aback by the surprising turn of events. His surprise momentarily distracted him, giving Yi Xian an opening. Seizing this opportunity, Yi Xian swiftly grabbed hold of Qin Yi's neck. While gripping Qin Yi's neck, Yi Xian taunted him for celebrating too early. Following this, Yi Xian delivered a powerful kick, sending Qin Yi soaring through the air and crashing into a nearby tree. Qin Yi's friend inquired about his well-being, but Qin Yi seemed more concerned about retrieving his sword, exclaiming that it belonged to him. The three of them stared at Yi Xian in disbelief, commenting on how the lodged sword didn't harm him but instead seemed to be absorbed. Qin Yi expressed astonishment, questioning if Yi Xian possessed an innate sword body. Yi Xian responded, stating that he not only possessed an innate sword body but also had extensive knowledge of sword arts. With determination, Yi Xian charged at the trio, his sword directed towards them. As Yi Xian launched his attack, an explosion erupted, throwing the trio back. Once the smoke cleared, a large sword slash was revealed on the ground next to the fallen trio. Qin Yi called out to Yi Xian, addressing him by name. As Yi Xian approaches him, Qin Yi warned that killing him would lead to retaliation from Kangmu Academy against Kanglin Academy. Furthermore, Qin Yi claimed that in the upcoming year, Yi Xian's lifeless body would be found on the Kang Mountain Trail. Yi Xian readied his sword and responded by saying that it was a pity that Qin Yi wouldn't have the chance to see it. Upon hearing this, Qin Yi called for help despite being aware that he is within the enemy territory. Surprisingly, the dean himself intervened and requested Yi Xian to stop. Yi Xian realized this and asked Dean Ji what he was doing. Dean Ji replied that he was in fact trying to prevent Yi Xian from killing Qin Yi and advised him not to rush things. The dean then turned his attention to Qin Yi and instructed him to go back and deliver a message to Dean Li Xiankang that if he wanted to challenge the Kanglin Academy, he shouldn't use deceitful tactics. Otherwise, he would face consequences. However, before the dean could even finish his statement, the trio immediately shouted at each other to run away. Observing the situation, Yi Xian questioned the dean, expressing concern that sparing their lives might lead them to return and cause trouble for him. However, while focusing on the positive side, the dean responded to Yi Xian, asking if he thought those individuals were worthy of his attention. He reminded Yi Xian that he was the stronger one in this situation and mentioned that Kanglin Academy was growing in power, indicating that there was no need to engage in direct confrontation. Upon hearing the dean's advice, Yi Xian expressed his conviction, stating that he would eventually topple the Kangshan Trail. As they make their way back to the academy, the dean comments on Yi Xian's strong desire for revenge and reminded him that he might need to leave early for Liangjie Mountain. Yi Xian questioned the dean, asking if he was concerned about any potential interference from Kangmu Academy. The dean replied with a simple instruction, telling Yi Xian to proceed to go to Liangjie Mountain. Later that night at the academy gate, the group gathered around Yi Xian. He instructed his sister to behave well and not to cry. While gently patting her head, Yi Xian informed her that he was going to Liangjie to find a cure for her illness. He urged her to take good care of herself while he was away. Anji reassured Linger, mentioning that she shouldn't cry as it wouldn't be a good look for her. Yi Ling replied to Anji, expressing her obedience, and stating that she would patiently wait for her brother's return. Following that, Yi Xian requested Dean Ji to ensure Linger's safety. Dean Ji responded by assuring him that anyone who wished to harm Linger would have to confront him first. Bai Zhe and Mu Yun chimed in, declaring that they would protect Linger even if it meant sacrificing their lives. In response to their unwavering support, Yi Xian expressed his gratitude. As Yi Xian prepared to depart from the group, Mu Yun shouted, expressing his anticipation for Yi Xian's return so they could fight each other. Linger confidently commented that Mu Yun would not be able to defeat her brother. Bai Zhe agreed wholeheartedly with Linger's statement. Upon hearing their encouraging words, Yi Xian smiled as he leaves for a journey. Later on, inside the cloud ship, as Yi Xian watches the flying cranes, a person notices his presence, causing her to express her dissatisfaction, mentioning that it was unfortunate to come across an eyesore like him. Distracted by this comment, Yi Xian turns towards her and immediately recognized her as Mu Suiqing. Realizing this, Yi Xian quickly averted his gaze, thinking to himself about the unexpected encounter and deciding to disregard her presence. Noticing his reaction, Suiqing promptly grabbed his arm while calling him a poor dog, questioning him whether he felt ashamed to be in the presence of someone wealthy. In response, Yi Xian retorted, pointing out that she accused him of being a poor dog but questioned her own behavior. He described her as a snobbish individual who only knew how to bully others. Upon hearing his words, Suiqing berated him, expressing her astonishment at his daringness to speak to her in such a manner. Following this, Suiqing threatens him that she could make it hard for him to enter the Two-World City. Reacting to her words, Yi Xian proceeded to get close to her face as he delivers his warning that if she truly possessed the capability, then she can be assured that he would be prepared to confront her at any given time. As Yi Xian turns his back towards her, he further expressed his extreme hate for her and therefore advised her to stay away from him. In reaction to this, Suiqing trembled in anger and thought to herself that Yi Xian had insulted her and wished for him to suffer a terrible fate. On a side note, Suiqing is noticeably blushing, either from being embarrassed, or maybe she just likes it that way. Later on, inside the Two-World City, the boat driver instructed the passengers to prepare for disembarking and gather their belongings. Among the passengers, Yi Xian commented as he looked around that he had never expected the Two-World City to be so prosperous. He mentioned his intention to bring Linger to see it next time. Opening his map, Yi Xian thought to himself whether it would take 2 hours to reach that place and considered going to the city first to purchase a fast horse. As he happily stored away his map, while also contemplating shopping for rare items for Linger, a hand suddenly tapped his shoulder, and the person inquired if he was Yi Xian. While turning back to face the person, Yi Xian questioned the person regarding their identity. Replying to him was a beautiful girl who pointed at his poorly drawn portrait and mentioned that she was An Lang Shu's best friend and also the 9th princess of Jiang. Following this, the princess questioned him if is indeed the person from the portrait. Replying to her while looking at the portrait, Yi Xian hesitated and acknowledged that it seemed to be him. While saying this, Yi Xian thought to himself about the woman, remarking on her beauty. After confirming his identity, the princess proceeded to take a closer look at Yi Xian and remarks on her initial thought that he was a cute teenager based on the portrait but expressed regret, saying she should have refused a request regarding him. Following this, the princess extended her hand, implying that she was asking for something, referring to it as qualifications. Yi Xian, puzzled by this, questioned her about the meaning of qualifications. Realizing what she meant, Yi Xian took out a jade and tried to confirm if that was what she was referring to. The princess responded with a simple sound of agreement, indicating affirmation. As the princess turned around and started walking, she informed Yi Xian that they should go. She mentioned that this time, there would be not only people from Jian but also geniuses and disciples from other countries. She warned that if they arrived late, they wouldn't be able to obtain anything. Reacting to this revelation, Yi Xian inquired if there were people from the Kangmu Academy present. The princess replied affirmatively, stating that there were experts from the Kangmu Academy among the attendees. After 2 hours, the two of them finally arrived at the Two Worlds Mountain. As they stood in front of its gate, the princess reminded Yi Xian, advising him to remember that he was there for an opportunity, not for adventure. Upon hearing this, Yi Xian questioned her, seeking clarification on what she meant. In response to him, the princess gave him a threatening look and told him that he must not kill innocent people on her land, warning that she would kill him if he did. With a timid expression, Yi Xian affirmed his understanding. However, a voice came from out of nowhere, suddenly addressing the princess. The person asked what would happen if he sleeps with a beautiful woman like her from her country. Following this, the person swiftly directed a punch between the two of them, as if to separate them. Continuing the attack, the person successfully separated the two. As he looked back at the princess with a smile, he called her the little beauty of the Jiang country, and invited her to come to him, claiming he would love her. Yi Xian remarked that the person was one of the Tang people. Realizing this, Yi Xian proceeded to punch the person, expressing his outrage at the idea of someone thinking about their ladies in such a manner. In response to his attack, the princess jumped towards the person's back and slashed him on his vital spot. She declared that he was not qualified to sleep with her. Observing this, Yi Xian thought to himself that she was deserving of being called the best of the Jiang country along with An Lang Shu. Realizing Yi Xian's gaze, the princess smiled at him and asked what he was looking at. Yi Xian replied while giving her a thumbs up, expressing his admiration and remarking that it was awesome. However, suddenly, the princess prepared to attack again, urgently warning Yi Xian to watch out.